the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I think about this, and there's some gut check there.
Yeah.
There's some gut check. How do you wake up in the morning? Do you pop right out of bed or do you hit the snooze? Is your car messy or clean? Is it right? And you start thinking about the way I do one thing. Well, you don't get a cheat. That shows up in your life over and over again. And I think about it with these standards. If you don't have standards, then you're going to be whimsically led to wherever life wants to lead you. And you're never going to have this ability to reroute yourself into what it is you're trying to achieve. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I want to talk. Let's maybe define a little bit about this concept of above the line and below the line. So when I think of like what are those old charts? Remember in math back in the day,
Yeah.
they had these like
XY axis.
yeah, XY axis. I obviously failed that class. If it was geometry or algebra, I don't know. But okay, so we have this theory that standards are a level of acceptability. We say my standard is X, right? And this is going to be acceptable. So on that old school math chart here, we're going to have a line, and that line of acceptability really relates to your standards. Whatever your standards are your standards around lead generation? Are your standards around annual reviews? Are your standards around, I don't know what you're going to choose to be your standard, but let me share with you above and below the line. When you're performing at a level higher than your standards, you're operating above the line. When you're operating below your standards, you're operating at below the line. And I think that this is a principle we've got to understand, but not only understand it, we got to be honest with ourselves. At what point? Well, first of all, if you don't have standards, this is irrelevant. Throw that away because you've never established your line. So let's talk about standards, Matt, and just establishing your line in our industry.
Yeah. I mean, as you were saying that, one of the things that crossed my mind, and then I want to answer exactly what you're talking about, but one of the things that answered or that came to my mind was this concept of when you don't have a standard, you can say yes to anything, and it's hard to say no to anything as
Mm,
well. So, standard can be this is what we do in our business, and this is what we don't do. This is how we help clients. This is how we don't help clients. And when people don't have an answer for that, what they end up doing is they end up spending 80% of their time on things they should have said no to. And if you're an advisor or an agent, someone in our business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the one off case that you take off, to help this person and it wastes your time. You don't give them the service they really wanted to begin with. You can never make them happy. You just need to know what to say no to. And so, defining that all around is a critical part to success. And if I go and talk to these eight-figure agents and these business owners, these entrepreneurs, they are very clear on what they do and what they don't do. And I've actually found they're more prideful in what they don't do.
mhm.
Oh, I don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They know exactly what it is. So it goes back to who am I? Who am I not? This is what our business does. And I personally feel like if you're a person starting out, you kind of feel like I'm going to talk to anyone who breathes.
Yeah.
We've talked to more successful people. That approach is be be very clear in what you do and very clear who you do it with, and that will add to way more success than hey, if you breathe, I want to meet with you as a financial planner. And start your career out the way. Those who are in the business for a long time, you should be meeting with your staff, your group, your organization, and always defining who we are and who we aren't, and checking yourself every year on that, so everyone lives into those standards of what you do and what you don't do.
Yeah. I think it's so intriguing because standards, you know, I had to get rocks, bruises, scrapes, and thorns to start figuring out, oh man, I should probably have a standard around that or some sort of a process around that. Like I was just trying to fill that out. But some of these old timers that have been there, done that, they have standards. Some of the standards maybe they created, some of the standards they learned, but the end result was they clearly understand their standards. And here's the question I want to pose to the community really. Think about this. Currently in your situation, if I were to hire one individual tomorrow, I was to hire them and they were to come on, and maybe even I had a 3x5 note card that I could write all your standards, deliver all your standards to them, tell them what they need to live into, tell them who we are as an organization, tell them how we treat customers, tell them how we lead generate, tell them how we process paperwork and files and we get it to the finish line, tell them how we celebrate wins, tell them all of these business avenues or aspects. Those are standards. And so if we can't communicate that, maybe that's just a question or a way that we can kind of work through an exercise. Does that make sense, Matt?
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Obviously, there are achievers and there are steady pacemakers, and there are some people that are procrastinators and that struggle. So as I'm bumping around and I'm trying to live into my standards, sometimes I'm high flying and I'm living above the line. Let's talk about this though. I'm in a cycle. I know we've talked about this in other podcasts, this cycle of going through wins and losses and struggles. When I drop below the line, what do I do? How do I get unstuck from dropping below the line?
Yeah. So, when we have a lot of high performers, they're very goal oriented in our industry. So I have to write a certain amount of premium. I'm going to close so many policies. I'm going to bring on so many clients. I'm going to make so many calls. So much of our business is this like quota driven. Now, whether it's your organization doing it or you're doing it internal, it's there, it's happening. And so there's the type of advisor agent person who can self regulate that. And they say, okay, I haven't written the premium I'm supposed to do. Now what? I haven't made the calls I was supposed to make. Now what? And it takes a special person to be able to say, okay, I haven't done enough calls. I haven't done this activity or whatever it may be, and to know what you have to do to hit those numbers. And usually it requires not going home. Usually that's the case. Usually it just means a little bit more hours. Sometimes it's bigger. But when that happens, I think that it's a good thing to say, okay, if I'm not hitting these, then what?